Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. This video is featuring some products from the new Spellbinders kit. This embossing folder is from their kit. It's one of my favorite ones they've ever released. And then I'm also using the clear stamps and dies kit. If you're not familiar with their subscription kits, this is the color palette I've picked, PS. If you're not familiar with their kits, it is a membership. You sign up for it. You can cancel it anytime. They also have a clearance sale going on, which is amazing. Let's get into this and then we'll talk some more about the other stuff. So first way, I'm going to add ink to my embossing folder. This is just going to give us more mileage, guys. That's the whole point of this video, is how can we use our products differently to get more mileage out of the things that we have. So first things first, white pigment ink. I don't even like pigment ink. I'm going to be real. It's messy. It's kind of challenging to clean up. The brayer, which is what I'm using here, mine's just an old school speedball brayer. I've had it since I first started crafting. You just want to rub it directly onto your ink pad, and then once it's inked up, then you will add that to your embossing folder. If you have trouble getting any coverage, just kind of maybe try the direction that you're rolling it. Or if you feel like you need more ink, you can take the brayer back to your ink pad, kind of rub it on there, load it up, and then do it again. And then you just want to be very careful with adding your cardstock. I'm doing this one on navy. It will work on any cardstock, but it does show up better on darker cardstocks just because it's a lighter ink. So once I have this good and covered, then I will put my cardstock in, being very, very, very careful not to pick it back up. So once you put it down, don't scoot it, don't move it, don't bump it, don't nothing. Put it down and then hold it in place. I like to add a piece of tape to the side of my embossing folder just to hold it closed, to further assure me that nothing is going to move around and smear my ink all over. One of the reasons that pigment ink works so well with this is because it stays wet longer. So here, this is my Platinum 6 from Spellbinders. I have the universal plate system, which means it has the recipe right on my base to show me. So it is the base plate, the adapter plate, and then the embossing folder with your cardstock. I checked it. Every machine is different. It didn't seem like it had enough pressure, so I added my shim, and then I ran it through, and I'm going to run this through technically twice, but really 4 times, because I'm running it through and then back and then through and then back. So 4 times through the machine, just to make sure I'm getting good, even pressure. Then I can remove those plates, pull out my embossing folder, and this, again, be careful because the pigment inks do stay wet longer. So in order to make sure that I'm not going to mess up my pattern, I'm just going to use tweezers to pull it off of there. But isn't that so pretty? And this is just like one ink pad. That's it. Like, you could just buy this one and get this look out of every embossing folder that you have. Super cool. So we're going to set that aside. It does not take long to dry. I did want to show you that this will work with dye inks as well. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here. Though, complete transparency, I didn't end up using this background. I just didn't like it as much as the other ones. And so I just set it aside and we'll use it for a different project. But this is a dye ink. This is from Hero Arts. I'm doing the same thing to ink up my brayer. Is the brayer necessary? No, and I will show you that with the next one. Does it make it less messy and give you more even coverage? Yes, it does, which is why it is my preferred method. But you can do, again, if you don't have a brayer, and I think even Tim Holtz has some smaller ones. I have never used the smaller ones. I never had any projects I was brayering that I would want a smaller one for. I bought this one, like I said, early on in my craft career, and anything that I have needed a brayer for, this has suited me just fine. So here, again, inking this up, but this time I'm inking up the back of the folder instead of the front of the folder. And what that means is, instead of the ink sitting on the embossed parts, it's actually going to deposit the ink in the debossed parts. So this is another way that we can get a different look from the same embossing folder. So you can see here, it's not on the outside portion of the design. It's on the inside, like where, I guess they look like little shells, like where the shell portion is. So this time it's going to push the ink down instead of coating the portion that is pushed up. So yeah, very cool. You guys know, if you watch my videos, that I'm a fan of getting kind of more out of all of the things that we purchase, because this is not a cheap hobby by any means. And so like, I'm totally here for finding different ways to use my things. So because it just kind of fell out, I flipped it the other way. But here you can see that the ink is then debossed. It's pushed down, and I think it's a super cool look. These are the two next to each other, so you can see them side by side. And the debossed one you could also do with the white pigment ink, but I wanted to show you that it would work with a dye. Here, we're going to do no brayer at all. We're just going to take our ink pad. I am using oxides because, like I said, I do feel like pigments give me more work time. But so here, this is a distress oxide. It has pigment properties, and I'm just taking that directly to this is the raised portion side, so the top of the embossing folder, and I'm just rubbing that around in there. One of the things that I don't particularly like about this is sometimes you can get fuzzies from the ink pad, but if that happens, just pick them off, re-ink that part. Here, I've laid my paper down. Again, I'm not moving it, and I will be running this through. This time I did a darker ink on a lighter cardstock, and I was really happy with the way that this one came out as well. So again, brayer not needed, just a little less messy with the brayer. And everybody feels differently about that. Some people don't mind getting their hands dirty. Some people wear, gloves when they do any kind of inking. So whatever works for you, do you. You know how we feel around this channel. Everybody does their own thing, and we're all very happy for them. So here, I apologize for not giving you a better look at this. I was just kind of like in the flow of making all of these backgrounds. Something to note, though, I will tell you with the pigment inks or pigment-based inks, I did take it to my sink to wash the brayer and the folder because that was just the fastest way to clean up the ink. I have done it in the past with baby wipes, but it's messier and takes longer. So here, this is one of my favorite things to do with a brayer, and why I originally bought mine all those years ago, is these ombre backgrounds. So I probably should not have done the white. I probably should have done a lighter coral color. But nonetheless, this is what I did. So here you can see I'm rubbing on them at the same time. There is a gap in between them. Don't worry about the gap. The gap will close because as you're applying the ink, you're going to move your brayer slightly up and slightly down. So that's going to close the gap in between them. You can do this with dye ink. I would recommend doing it with oxides or other pigment inks because it gives you a longer working time. And now here we're going to go in, we're going to do that middle color with a darker coral. This is saltwater taffy and abandoned coral. And I just put them right next to each other. Again, don't worry about that gap. It was kind of running away from me. It's okay. And then I'm just going to go in and do the same thing, putting it down, shifting my brayer slightly up, slightly down to get those colors to blend. And then here is maybe where I should have done something different. I used coral colored cardstock, and it was just too close to the saltwater taffy. So on the saltwater taffy portion of it, even though you can see it on the folder here, it's very obvious, you can't really see it on the cardstock. And I didn't really love that, but the pattern was still there because we're doing the embossing. So after I went through, I ran it through the machine just like I have been, that back and forth. And then I checked it and I didn't super love it. And you're going to see it here in a second. You can see the white on the bottom. You can see the darker color coral up top, but in the middle, it doesn't look like there's any color at all. So I'm going to leave my paper exactly where it is. I'm not going to pull it out. And I'm going to go in direct with the ink pad just for the coral and the white to see if I can make that a little bit darker. I'm just going to kind of like try to bring it down a little bit, and I'm putting this on. I'm not trying to get full coverage. I'm just putting it on randomly. Oh, I did do the saltwater taffy again. I apologize. I did do this one again. And then the white at the bottom, again, just trying to put down more pigment in the hopes that I would be able to get it to show up more. Did this work? I don't know. I mean, that's just me being honest. There's that fuzzies I was talking about. So I'm not entirely sure. I ran it through. This is me showing it to you again. I guess you could see a little bit more at the top and the bottom, but ultimately the card that I ended up making with this, you can still see the design in the middle. I did another one, but this time, and everything was the same colors, same application process. But this time I put it on white cardstock. And I liked this one much better. However, there's that white again. Like the white on white, I knew I wasn't really going to be able to see. But you really cannot, like you can't see it at all. You really cannot see it. And there's this huge line, and you'll see when I flip it over, I even point it out. There's a line right there where it's very apparent that the saltwater taffy just kind of drops off. I knew that going into it, and I was like, okay, if that is the line that stays there, I will just trim down this panel. And that is exactly what I did. Like I said, if I had to do it all over again, I would have picked like a lighter pink to finish off the bottom there instead of going with white. But here is what we have made so far. Those are the two that are exactly the same color combinations, just on different colored cardstock. And now we are going to start doing our stamping to create our cards. I opted to do all of my stamping in the same color. If you watch my videos, you know I have a thing about like when I'm making cards that are going to be in the same picture, that they work well together and they're complementary. And so I did try white heat embossing them and doing some ink blending. I didn't like it. You'll see those later. But ultimately, the one I decided that I did like was stamping them down in navy and then doing a little bit of coral coloring on the flowers. Full transparency, the ink that I am using is Nautical by Hero Arts. It is not, let me repeat, it is not safe for Copic coloring. What does that mean? It means that there's a chance your ink's going to smear. That's the truth of it. But it's the navy that I had, and I don't have a navy that is safe for Copic coloring. And so I just decided that I was going to risk it. It really did not smear terrible. It's not like my ink ran all over the place or anything like that. I just made sure that it was really good and dry, and I did a very minimal shading. So that's why I am starting with my darkest color, because I know the less that I manipulate this, the better off I'm going to be. So I started with my darkest color and then moved out to my lightest. I also put very little light colored ink down because that's where you're going to see the smearing the most. It's the most noticeable with light colors. You also want to make sure that your markers are nice and juicy, because if you are having to scrub at your image, you will for sure smear that ink. And so I just colored them all the same. Everything the same for these. A nice little coral flower on my butterfly, and then on this cute little, it's almost like an ornament shape. You can put your sentiments inside of it or not at all. I used it both ways. Whatever floats your boat. Like, whatever makes you happy. So, back to the clearance things, because there was something that I wanted to tell you with that. So, Spellbinders almost always has this kind of clearance sale going on, and they just are continually adding to it. And it is a huge sale. It's very large. It's pages and pages. If you have you're like, Kelly, I've already seen what they have in their clearance section, and I don't want to go through it again. Dude, I don't blame you. My time is precious just like your time is precious. If you go to the clearance sale, on the right-hand side, there's a little box that says featured. This box shows you what the items are in what order. So if you click that drop-down box, there's a bunch of options on there, but if you change the featured to new to old, it's actually going to bring up the most recent things that they have added to the sale and save you from having to go through pages and pages and pages. They also have a section at the top where it says sale. When you hover over the clearance, it'll tell you, like, if you're specifically looking for embossing folders, click that and it'll show you that specifically. So here's my general layouts. I've got all my things that I've stamped and die cut, and now I'm going to start getting everything trimmed down. So for this one, I trimmed it 1/4 of an inch on each side. For this one, I just went to exactly where that line was and trimmed that off. And then I figured out how much I had cut off, which was just a little less than an inch. And then I cut that off from the side as well so that it would be symmetrical. So that is how I did that one. The blue one is interesting because I knew I wanted it to be like a gap behind. So like the butterflies would be bridging the gap. And so the only way I could figure out to make this totally even, I wanted to cut 1 inch from the middle, was I just found the middle of the card. I cut that. And then I cut the same amount from each side. So once I cut it in half, I cut 1/2 inch from each one of these panels. And then that gave me my inch in the middle so that my pattern would still be lined up. This one here, I knew that I was going to need white panels for some of them. And so that is what I'm doing here. I knew the coral colored one was going to be my background, and I'm just laying my butterflies out so I can eyeball this. It ended up being 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And then, you know what? I think I trimmed it down again. That looks too big. I'm pretty sure I trimmed it down again. I wanted to see more of the background, I think. Yeah, look at me with my tappy fingers. That's obviously thinking fingers, can't you tell? So now what did I do? 3 by 4 1/4. Yeah, I cut 1/4 off each side. That makes sense. And then I think that's what I ended up going with. And then for all of the sentiments, I went back and forth about doing them different colors, and I decided that that was kind of going to be a pain in my butt. So what I ended up doing was white embossing all of them on that navy cardstock and then cutting them out with their dies. In this clear stamp and die set, everything, all of the sentiments have their own dies, as well as a butterfly die and the die for the ornament shape. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the kits, I would suggest checking them out because they're just really good value for what you're paying for. And the kits, if you're not a member, they opened up on the 6th, and I think they run until the 27th if you want to get this particular kit. That's the benefit of being a subscriber, is you're already included in there. But if you don't want to subscribe, you do have to purchase this subscription, but then you can cancel after that. So yeah, that's that. What has been going on in my life? I have been absolutely inundated with card making, but not card making that makes videos. Does that make sense? Like, oh, here I wanted to show you, these are other ones that I had cut. There's that inking I told you about that I didn't even like. And I'm going to use these because I've already cut them. I'm going to use them to stack up my little ornament piece and then my butterfly. If you did not cut all these extra pieces like I did, you would need to cut those. The only ones I had to cut extra for were the sentiments because I didn't have any extra pieces of those. So I did cut 2 additional pieces for my sentiments, and then you're going to watch me stack everything up together. Here, that was just like an extra ornament piece that I had that I colored that I didn't even end up needing, which, I mean, it's not like the coloring took a long time, so it's not a huge deal, but I am going to stack those up. after I figure out which one I like the best and I want to be untopped, because they literally are the same exact image. But this way I don't have to add any foam tape or anything underneath it. It's stacked on 2 additional pieces of cardstock, which give me a thickness of 3 pieces of cardstock. And then I will put that here. Like I said, I could have put the sentiment in the middle. I chose not to. I thought that the ornament piece was pretty on its own and enough to carry a card, and so I just put the sentiment underneath it. So anyway, inundated with card making, but not the kind that produces videos. That's just where I'm at. It's for a different assignment, and it's just that time of year. So I'm trying to knock them out as quickly as I possibly can. But because I have been focused on that, I have not been editing videos. This one I actually edited yesterday, but my nose was running so badly I could not do the voiceover. It just would not stop. It was all day long. And then at like, I don't know, 20 after 12 last night, Caitlin woke up and I was like, you could hear her kind of moving around and she was a little bit cryy, but not fully. And I was just like laying there praying to Jesus, please let her find her pacifier and go back to bed, because I cannot get up with this baby and deal with this snotty nose anymore. Like, I have to sleep. Please, Lord. And the Lord answered my prayers. Thank you, Jesus. Praise the Lord. I was so tired and like, I just couldn't do it. Like, I just could not do it. Because she has had a cold. I told you guys that, and when she's sick, you know how babies are, they don't sleep great, even though we're doing all the things that we could possibly be doing to help her out. We just got to ride it out. So last night she slept through the night. The night before she slept through the night. So here's hoping we're on the outskirts of it. Man, I hope so. So this card is the one where I trimmed off the bottom, the white portion that didn't work. And I have to tell you, this card was the hardest one to photograph, but it is probably my favorite card of all of them. Just because I super love the background. I like the little gradient. I think it's super fun. This butterfly, because it's stamped in the navy, is a great kind of focal point, pops up from the background. This one, it was hard to get a good photograph of because there was so much white, but really super love this one. You'll have to let me know which one is your favorite when you leave a comment. Let me know which one you liked the best. And all these little sentiments are super cute. This one is just a little high for me. There's another one that's a birthday one. There's something else that's encouraging. What was it? Do you remember? Did we see it already? I don't know. Let's look. The blue one was You Are So Kind, which is obviously could be a thank you, just could be a little happy hello. And then the butterfly one, the last one that we'll put together, is the best is yet to come. That's the one that I was thinking of that was like kind of encouraging. So this one here, I told you I wanted like the butterfly and stuff to like bridge the gap. So I've put some foam adhesive there. I'm just lining it up on either edge, which will give me that 1-inch gap of white. I did try it on navy as well, and I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it as much. I liked the white, probably because my images have that white background. And then I am going to just line these up down the center. I will put a little bit of foam adhesive in the middle and then glue on the portions that will actually sit on the embossed part. And this one is a little bit busier for me, but I thought that it was really cool that kind of all of the things fit and they fit with each other. And so just a different look. It's good to break out. It's good to break out and try different things. So yeah, so I've been doing that. Is there anything else that's been... No, I don't really think so. I did do a little bit of Googling because you guys know I want to know all the answers. So on the way to school the other day, the radio station that I listened to, they were talking, it was like, that portion of the show where everybody's talking. They were talking about like different myths that they had been taught or that they thought that actually turned out to be completely not true whatsoever. And so Peanut and I were listening on the way to school, and he had some questions about it. So I spent a little bit of time when I, was sitting down, like when I had a break, doing some Googling about like myths that were debunked. So like one of the ones that they talked about on the radio program was like if you throw a piece of change off of the Empire State Building, it'll kill the person below. Not true. It's not true. Everybody thinks that. I thought that for a really long time. It's completely not true. There's another one that went around the internet forever that was like, you eat 7 spiders a year while you're sleeping or something. Complete fallacy. Totally made up. And in fact, that one was made up by a teacher when she was trying to explain to her students how the internet worked and how just because what you read on the internet doesn't make it true. She actually posted it onto the internet to show her students how fast this misinformation would travel. And that was something like 10 years ago or something like that, and like people were still out there because none of us fact checked, myself included. I'm not just calling other people out. I believe that and perpetuated that misinformation for years. Like, you eat 7 spiders a year. Total lie. Totally made up by some lady who was just trying to make a point. And honestly, she made her point pretty well because people are still saying it. So one of the things that I thought was super interesting that I wasn't even looking for when I started, looking for it was that there's only 3 states of matter. I didn't think this was a myth. Solid, gas, liquid. That's what I learned. Apparently plasma is also a state of matter. Fascinating, huh? Yeah, interesting. So if you have a myth that you have debunked, I'm also interested in that in your comments because I like to know all of the information. So now that all the cards are put together, I am adding some shimmer to all of my flowers because I enjoy that. I am also going to go in, and this is White Hero Pearls. And I'm just going to, you could totally do this with gemstones or with pearl stickers, but this is a lot of pearl stickers to expend, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do my own pearls with the hero pearls. And so I put little dots inside the center of all of the flowers to give them kind of raised centers that matched what we had going on here. And then the last thing that what else did I do? Oh, I had to add rhinestones. That's what I did, but only to one of them. This one over here on the far right. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. This one over here on the far right. It just needed something to connect the 2 elements a little more so than this sentiment. And so I just put in some blue rhinestones and was good with the way that looked. Here's all 4 cards. I hope that you are inspired to get out your embossing folders and maybe if you have a brayer or do the direct to ink pad. But anyway, nonetheless, give it a try. I encourage you to do so. It's a great way to get more miles out of the things that you have. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.